Lisa Carter stood alone in the massive hall, looking up at the 47 alien faces staring down at her. The Galactic Council chamber was built to make visitors feel small, and it was working perfectly. The crystal walls stretched up so high, she could barely see the ceiling, and the alien delegates sat on floating platforms that made them seem like gods looking down at insects. She took a deep breath, stepped forward to the speaking platform. Her voice echoed in the huge space as she began to talk. Honored members of the Council, I speak for all of humanity today. Our world is dying. The air is poisoned, the oceans are rising, and our people are struggling to survive. We've tried everything we know how to do, but we need help. A sound like breaking glass came from the Velkari section. Lisa knew they were laughing at her. The Velkari looked like tall, thin humans made of glass, and their laughter sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Their leader, something called A, Prime Voice, spoke in a voice that sounded like singing. The small creatures from the mud world want our technology? How amusing. Perhaps they should learn to take care of their own nest before asking to play with real tools. More laughter came from different sections. The Thactions, who looked like giant lizards wearing fancy clothes, hissed their approval. Their ambassador stood up on his platform, his golden scales catching the light. Humans have been part of this galaxy for barely 50% of their years. In that time, they have started 12 wars on their own world, poisoned their own air and water, and now they come begging for help like children who broke their toys. Lisa felt her face get hot, but she kept her voice calm. We admit we have made mistakes, but we have also learned from them. We offer our knowledge, our friendship, and our cooperation in return for the technology that could save our world. From the observation deck above, Jake Morrison watched the whole thing happen. He was a military man, used to dealing with problems he could fight or fix. But this was different. This was politics. And he hated feeling helpless while his friend got torn apart by these alien snobs. Jake had fought in 3 different space battles defending Earth from raiders. He had seen human soldiers stand their ground against enemies twice their size. But none of that mattered here. Here, they were just the poor relatives asking for charity, down in the chamber. Dr. Helen Brooks stepped forward to help Lisa. Helen was Earth's smartest scientist, and she had spent months preparing for this moment. She activated a hologram projector and filled the air with images of human achievements. Look at what we have accomplished, Helen said, her voice strong and clear. We went from not knowing fire to walking on our moon in just a few thousand years. We learned to fly, to heal diseases that killed millions, to communicate across our entire world instantly. We did all of this without help from anyone. The hologram showed human cities, human art, human explorers walking on strange worlds. Showed human doctors saving lives, human teachers helping children learn, human farmers feeding their communities. A new voice cut through Helen's presentation like a knife. It belonged to Council Member Zex, a Zelthari whose purple skin seemed to glow with its own light. The Zelthari thought they were the smartest species in the galaxy, and they never let anyone forget it. Impressive finger paintings for cave dwellers, Zex said in a bored tone. But we are not here to admire primitive art. These humans think their tiny achievements matter compared to civilizations that mastered space travel while their ancestors were still learning to make fire. More agreement came from around the chamber. The Corvani delegation, insect-like creatures with 4 arms each, clicked their approval. The Hydari, who looked like floating jellyfish made of light, pulsed in patterns that meant they were amused. Lisa tried one more time. We are not asking for charity. We want to trade, to work together, to learn from each other. Humans may be young compared to your species, but we bring fresh ideas and different ways of thinking." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Chancellor Vex of the dominant coalition stood up. Vex was humanoid, but twice the size of any human, with silver skin and eyes like black holes. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the chamber like thunder. "The Galactic Council has made its decision. The species known as humans are denied access to atmospheric processing technology. Furthermore, as a developing world, Earth is prohibited from participating in galactic trade networks, accessing faster-than-light communication systems, or receiving any form of technological assistance from council members." Lisa felt like someone had hit her in the stomach. This was worse than just being told no. They were being cut off completely. Vex continued, and his voice got even colder. "The humans will return to their dying world and solve their problems with their own primitive methods. When they prove they can manage their own affairs without destroying themselves, perhaps the council will reconsider. That review will take place in no less than 500 Earth years." 500 years, everyone Lisa had ever known would be dead? Their children would be dead. Maybe their children's children too. Jake Morrison stood up in the observation deck, his hands balled into fists. He wanted to jump down there and show these aliens what humans could do when they got angry. But Lisa caught his eye and shook her head slightly. She was telling him to stay calm, to not make things worse. But Lisa was done being calm. She walked to the center of the speaking platform and looked up at each section of delegates. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the huge chamber. "We came here seeking partnership, not charity. We offered our cooperation, our unique perspectives, and our friendship. Since you have chosen to reject all three, we will remember this moment." She paused, and the silence in the chamber became thick and heavy. "You call us primitive, but we know something you seem to have forgotten. We know that strength is not just about having the biggest weapons or the oldest civilization. Real strength comes from working together, from helping each other, from never giving up, even when things seem impossible." Lisa looked directly at Chancellor Vex. "You have made your choice. We will make ours. Good day, council members. We'll not be back." She turned and walked toward the exit, her heels clicking on the crystal floor. Lynn Brooks followed her. Then Jake Morrison came down from the observation deck to join them. The three humans walked out of the chamber with their heads high, leaving behind a room full of aliens who suddenly felt like they had missed something important. As they reached their ship, Jake finally spoke. "So what do we do now?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment as she looked back at the towering crystal city. "Now we go home. And we make sure that humanity never has to ask anyone for help ever again." Helen nodded, her scientific mind already working on the problem. "It will take time, years, maybe decades. But if they think we are going to just sit on Earth and wait to die, they are about to learn how wrong they can be." Their ship lifted off from the crystal landing pad and turned toward Earth. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued its session, already forgetting about the three humans who had just walked out of their lives. They had no idea that they had. It just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The humans were going home, but they were not giving up. They were going to disappear, and when they came back, the galaxy would never be the same again. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of his ship, the Endeavor, watching another human colony disappear. The settlement on Kepler 440 had been there for 15 years. 30,000 people had called it home. Now it was empty. 5 years had passed since the Galactic Council told humanity to go away and die. Alex had expected anger, protests, maybe even some kind of fight. Instead, something much stranger was happening. Humans were leaving everything behind and vanishing into space. "Captain, we are getting the same readings from the next system," said his communication officer, Linda Gray. "All human settlements are dark. No signals, no heat signatures, nothing." Alex nodded slowly. This was the 8th colony they had checked this month. Every single one was the same story. The humans had packed up everything useful and left. They had destroyed what they could not take. They had erased all traces of their technology and knowledge. But where were they going? 3 systems away, Ben Harris was loading the last atmospheric processor onto a massive cargo ship. His grandfather had built these machines from scraps and spare parts 40 years ago. Back then, New Montana had been a dead rock with poisonous air. Now it had blue skies, green fields, and enough food to feed millions. Ben ran his hand along the metal casing of the processor. His grandfather had been proud of this machine. He had built it when the Galactic Council still let humans buy some basic technology. Now Ben was taking it apart piece by piece. "You sure about this, Ben?" asked his neighbor, Carol Price. "Family has been farming here for 20 years. This place is our home." Ben looked around at the empty fields. All the other families had already left. The livestock was loaded onto transport ships. The grain silos were empty. Even the schools and hospitals had been packed up and moved. "Home is where our people are," Ben said quietly. "And our people are not staying where they are not wanted." Carol nodded, but Ben could see tears in her eyes. He understood. Leaving was hard, but staying was harder. The transport ship that would carry the atmospheric processor was 3 times bigger than anything Ben had ever seen. It was painted black, with no markings or identification numbers. When he asked the captain where it was going, the man just smiled and said, "Somewhere safe." On the bridge of her command ship, Colonel Amy Foster watched the evacuation reports come in from across human space. 43 colonies, 15 mining operations, 8 research stations, 200,000 people, all moving to new homes that did not exist on any galactic map. Amy had been in charge of human military operations for 10 years. She had fought pirates and raiders. She had protected human traders and explorers. This was the biggest operation she had ever seen, and it was not a war. It was a carefully planned disappearance. "Ma'am, the Faction Empire is asking questions," reported Major Dan Collins. "They want to know why human ships are not showing up for scheduled cargo runs." Amy looked at the star map on her screen. Red dots showed where human colonies used to be. Green dots showed where alien civilizations. "We're starting to notice that something was wrong. Tell them we are restructuring our operations," Amy said. "Be polite, be boring. Give them nothing useful." This was the plan that had been made in secret meetings on Earth. No anger, no threats, no dramatic announcements. Humans would just fade away from galactic civilization like they had never been there at all. But Amy knew the truth. Humans were not disappearing. They were moving to places where aliens had never been. They were building new worlds in the dark spaces between the stars. And they were preparing for something big, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth. Dr. Kevin Walsh was putting the finishing touches on humanity's greatest secret. The quantum computers that filled the underground facility were more powerful than anything the Velcri had ever built. It had been working for 5 years on a project so secret that only 50 humans in the entire galaxy knew what it really was. Kevin called it Silent Running, but that was not its real name. Its real name was Project Exodus, and it was going to change everything. "Kevin, we are ready for the final phase," said Dr. Nancy Bell, his assistant. Nancy had been working 80-hour days for 2 years, just like everyone else on the project. Kevin looked at the massive screen that showed their progress. Lines of code scrolled past faster than any human could read. The computers were solving problems that would have taken human scientists centuries to figure out. They were designing new technologies, planning new colonies, and creating detailed maps of star systems that no alien had ever visited. "How many ships are ready?" Kevin asked. 732, Nancy replied. "With room for everyone who wants to leave," Kevin smiled. When the Galactic Council had told humans they could not have advanced technology, they had made a mistake. They had assumed humans would just sit on Earth and wait to die. Instead, humans had built their own technology. Better technology. Technology that would make the aliens very sorry. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, the last human crew was finishing their work. They had spent 3 weeks destroying everything they could not take with them. The mining equipment was loaded onto transport ships. Residential buildings were demolished. Even the roads had been torn up. Supervisor Mike Johnson watched his team place the final explosive charges. When those charges went off, there would be nothing left to show that humans had ever been on this world. "You know, Mike," said his foreman, "Pete Adams, the Corvani, are going to be really upset when they find out their lithium shipments are not coming anymore." Mike shrugged. Corvani had been buying lithium from this mine for 8 years. They used it to power their fancy starships. They had always paid late and complained about the quality. Now they could find their own lithium. "It's not our problem." "Any more?" Mike said. "Let them figure it out." The transport ships lifted off just as the charges exploded. The mining operation that had taken 5 years to build was destroyed in 5 minutes. Mike watched the flames through the ship's window and felt no sadness. They were going somewhere better. Across the galaxy, alien traders and diplomats were starting to notice that something was wrong. Human merchants were not showing up for meetings. Human cargo ships were not delivering goods. Human colonies were not answering their communication signals. Ambassador Kree of the Zelthari Confederation was the first to realize what was happening. Kree was smart, even by Zelthari standards, and he had always paid attention to patterns that other aliens missed. "The humans are leaving," he told his staff during a meeting on their homeworld. "Not just some of them, all of them." His assistant, a younger Zelthari named Voss, looked confused. "Leaving to go where?" "There are no habitable worlds in their territory that we do not know about." Kree stared at the star map on his wall. Human colonies were marked with blue dots, and more than half of those dots had gone dark in the past year. "That is what worries me," Kree said quietly. "If they are not going to worlds we know about, then they are going to worlds we do not know about. And if they found worlds we do not know about, what else have they found that we do not know about?" The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. For the first time since the Galactic Council had rejected humanity's request for help, an alien was beginning to wonder if they had made a mistake, but it was too late for wondering. The humans were already gone, and they were not coming back, at least not the same way they had left. When they returned, the galaxy would learn what humans could do when they were left alone to figure things out for themselves, and that lesson was going to be more expensive than anyone could imagine. Senator Ryan Clark of the Centauri Trade Federation stared at the numbers on his screen and felt sick. 15 years had passed since the humans disappeared, and galactic trade was falling apart. What had started as minor delays and contract disputes had grown into something much worse. "Senator, the Thaxian Empire just declared a trade embargo against the Zelthari." His assistant, Mark Phillips, reported from across the office. "That is the 4th major trade war this month." Ryan rubbed his tired eyes. The Thaxians and Zelthari had been rivals for centuries, but they had always managed to work together when it came to business. Now they were acting like children fighting over toys. "What was the dispute about this time?" Ryan asked. "Shipping routes through the Kepler Nebula. The Thaxians claim the Zelthari are charging unfair fees. The Zelthari say the Thaxians are trying to steal their territory." Ryan pulled up the old records on his computer. 5 years ago, this same dispute had been solved in 3 days. A human mediator named Carl Williams had sat both sides down and worked out a deal that made everyone happy. Carl had a gift for making aliens trust each other, even when they hated each other. But Carl was gone now, along with all the other human mediators, and without them, old enemies were becoming enemies again. 3 star systems away, Maria Santos was reading the same kind of reports in her laboratory on Haven's Rest. Haven's Rest was one of the new human colonies, built in a star system that no alien had ever found. It was beautiful, with clean air and blue oceans. But Maria missed the work she used to do before the Exodus. Maria had been the galaxy's leading expert on industrial fusion systems. She had worked with alien engineers from 12 different species, helping them build better power plants and faster ships. Her designs were used on thousands of worlds. Now she spent her time reading intelligence reports about the chaos. Her absence had caused the Corvani just had another reactor explosion, she told her research partner, Dr. James Carter. That is the 6th one this year. They are trying to modify their old fusion plants without understanding how the systems actually work. James looked up from his own reports. The Velkari are not doing much better. They lost an entire research station when their experimental reactor overloaded. Apparently, they were trying to reverse engineer some human technology they found in an abandoned colony. Maria shook her head. The Corvani and Velkari were supposed to be advanced civilizations. They had been building starships for thousands of years, but they had become so dependent on human improvements to their technology that they could not maintain their own systems anymore. How many people died in the Corvani explosion? Maria asked. 40,000? The reactor blast took out 3 city blocks. Maria felt guilty, even though she knew it was not her fault. Before the humans left, she would have been there to help. She would have looked at their reactor designs and spotted the problems before anyone got hurt, while she was safe on Havens. Rest while aliens died for mistakes she could have prevented. But the humans had tried to help before. The aliens had told them to go away. Now the aliens were learning what it meant to be alone. On the agricultural world of Ceres Prime, farmer Janet Miller was watching her crops die. Ceres Prime had been one of the galaxy's most important food producers, feeding 6 different star systems. But the plants were getting sick, and no one knew how to save them. The soil analysis came back. Janet's assistant, Tom Green, reported. The nutrient levels are dropping fast. If we cannot fix this, we will lose the entire harvest. Janet had been farming for 30 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The crops that had grown perfectly for decades were now failing. The genetic modifications that had made them so productive were breaking down. Have you tried the old fertilizer formulas? Janet asked. We tried everything in our databases. Nothing works. Janet knew why nothing worked. The crops on Ceres Prime were based on genetic modifications developed by human scientists. Dr. Angela Davis had spent 20 years creating plant varieties that could grow in alien soil and feed alien populations. When Angela left with the other humans, she had taken all her knowledge with her. The aliens had copies of Angela's final research, but they did not understand how it worked. They could follow the instructions, but when something went wrong, they had no idea how to fix it. Now 6 star systems were facing food shortages, and the situation was getting worse every month. Admiral Chris Mitchell was watching all of this. Happened from his command ship in the Hidden Sanctuary system. Chris was in charge of human military intelligence, and his job was to keep track of what was happening in the galaxy. They had left behind. The reports coming in were not good. Admiral, we just intercepted communications from the Velkari fleet, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Johnson. They are mobilizing for war against the Haidari Collective. Chris was not surprised. The Velkari and Haidari had been enemies for a long time, but they had managed to avoid open war for over a century. Human diplomats had always been there too. Calm things down when tensions got too high. What is the dispute about? Chris asked. What are rights in the Vega system? Both sides claim ownership of the ice moons around Vega 7. Chris remembered when a similar dispute had come up 8 years ago. Ambassador Lisa Carter had solved it in a week by suggesting that both sides share the water and split the profits. It had been a simple solution that made everyone happy. But Lisa was not there anymore. She was living on New Terra, helping to build humanity's new civilization. And without human mediators to find compromise solutions, the aliens were going back to their old ways of settling disputes. War was coming. And it was going to be terrible. The first shots were fired 3 months later. A Velkari patrol ship attacked a Haidari mining vessel near Vega 7. The Haidari responded by destroying a Velkari research station. Within days, both sides were calling up their military reserves. Dr. Patricia Green watched the war reports from her office on New Eden. Patricia had been Earth's top agricultural scientist before the Exodus, and she understood better than most what the galaxy was losing. The Corvani just lost their main food production planet, she told her colleague, Dr. Robert Stone. A Velkari attack fleet bombed their grain processing facilities. Robert looked shocked. But that will cause famine. Across their entire territory, millions of people will starve. The Velkari probably did not think about that, Patricia said sadly. They were just trying to hurt their enemies. They do not understand how connected everything has become. Before the humans left, galactic food production had been carefully coordinated. Human agricultural experts had helped different species share resources and techniques. If one world had crop failures, others would increase their production to make up the difference. Now that cooperation was breaking down, species that had worked together for decades were becoming enemies. Worlds that had never grown their own food were facing starvation. The complex system that had fed billions of people was collapsing, and it was only getting worse. The Galactic Council tried to hold emergency meetings to stop the wars, but the meetings turned into shouting matches. Old grudges that had been forgotten for centuries were brought up again. Species that had been allies began accusing each other of treachery and betrayal. Chancellor Vex, the same alien who had rejected humanity's plea for help 15 years earlier, stood before the council and tried to restore order. But his words fell on deaf ears. The delegates were too angry, too frightened, and too proud to listen. "We must find a way to work together," Vex said. "Our civilization is falling apart." But no one was listening. The species that had once dismissed humans as primitive were now proving that they could not even get along with each other without human help. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about what they had thrown away. But it might already be too late to fix the damage they had done to themselves. General Laura Adams was reading the most desperate message she had ever received. It came from Chancellor Vex himself, the same alien leader who had thrown humanity out of the galaxy 25 years ago. Now he was begging for their help. "Please," the message said, "if any humans can hear this, we need you. My people are dying. Our worlds are burning. We were wrong about everything. Please help us." Laura set down the communication device and looked out the window of her office on Sanctuary. The hidden human world was beautiful, with silver cities and green parks stretching to the horizon. It was hard to believe that just a few light years away, the galaxy was tearing itself apart. "General, we are getting similar messages from 43. Different species," reported Colonel Mike Wilson. "Everyone wants our help now." Laura was not surprised. The Great War had been raging for 5 years, and it was getting worse every day. What had started as small disputes over trade routes and resources had grown into something terrible. Entire star systems were now battlefields. Billions of people were dead. The Thaxian Empire was fighting a coalition of smaller species. The Velkari were using their advanced weapons to crush anyone who opposed them. The Corvani had lost half their territory. The Zelthari were barely holding on to their homeworld, and all of it could have been prevented if there had been human diplomats. Around to stop the fighting before it started, Captain Steve Parker was one of the few people who still traveled between the human colonies and the old galaxy. His job was to gather information about what was happening out there. What he saw made him sick. "The Proxima system is completely dead," he reported to the Human Leadership Council. "The Valkyrie glassed every planet in the system. 8 billion Hyderi civilians are gone." The council members listened in silence. These were the leaders of 43 human colonies. The people who had to decide what humanity should do about the galaxy's collapse. "What about the refugee camps?" asked President Rachel Stone. "Overcrowded and running out of supplies. Relief ships cannot get through the battle zones. People are starving on worlds that used to be paradise." Steve had seen things that would give him nightmares for the rest of his life. Children who had never known peace, families torn apart by wars they did not understand, entire species facing extinction because they could not stop fighting long enough to work together. Before the humans left, these kinds of conflicts had been rare. Human mediators had a talent for finding solutions that made everyone happy. Human traders had built relationships that crossed species lines. Human scientists had shared knowledge that helped everyone. Now all of that was gone, and the galaxy was paying the price. Professor Diana Miller was studying the collapse from her research facility on Terra Nova. Diana's job was to analyze data and predict what would happen next. Her predictions were getting worse every month. "Galactic civilization is maybe 5 more years," she told her research team. "After that, most species will not have the resources to maintain space travel. They'll be trapped on their homeworlds, fighting over scraps." Her assistant, Dr. Kevin Taylor, looked at the charts on the wall. They showed declining populations, destroyed infrastructure, and collapsing economies across dozens of star systems. "What about their technology?" Kevin asked. "Surely they can rebuild." Diana shook her head. That is the real tragedy. They had all the technology they needed, but they did not understand how it worked. Humans had been improving their systems for so long that the aliens never learned to innovate on their own. She pulled up a report about the Valkyrie research stations. Before the humans left, these stations had been producing breakthrough technologies every year. Now they could barely maintain their existing equipment. They became dependent on human creativity and problem-solving skills. Without us, they cannot adapt to new challenges or fix problems when things go wrong. Commander Noah Roberts was leading a secret reconnaissance mission into former galactic space. His job was to see the damage up close and report back to human command. What he found was worse than anyone had imagined. The children are the worst part, he told his crew as they watched a Corvani refugee camp from orbit. They've grown up thinking this is normal. War, starvation, fear, they do not know that life can be different. His pilot, Lieutenant Amy Foster, checked the scanner readings. 20,000 people in that camp. No medical supplies, barely any food, and the local government is too busy fighting to send help. Noah had been a soldier for 15 years, but this mission was breaking his heart. These were not enemy combatants or hostile aliens. These were ordinary people suffering because their leaders could not stop fighting long enough to take care of them, Captain. Should we send down some supplies? Amy asked. Noah wanted to say yes. The humans had plenty of food and medicine on their hidden worlds. They could help these people easily. But his orders were clear. Observe only. Do not reveal human presence. We cannot, he said quietly. Not yet. Back on Sanctuary, the human leadership was facing the hardest decision in their species' history. They had the power to stop the wars and save billions of lives. But doing so would mean revealing their hidden colonies and advanced technology to the same aliens who had rejected them. Admiral Pusey Hughes presented the military situation to the Council. Our fleets are ready. Could end the major conflicts. Within 6 months, our medical ships could treat the wounded and sick. Our agricultural experts could solve the food shortages. The numbers were impressive. During their 25 years of isolation, humans had built technologies that made their old equipment look like toys. Their ships were faster and stronger than anything in the galaxy. Their weapons could disable enemy fleets without killing anyone. Their computers could coordinate relief efforts across thousands of worlds. But what happens afterward? Asked Dr. Catherine Lee. Catherine had survived 3 alien attacks on human colonies before the Exodus. She remembered what it felt like to be helpless while aliens tried to kill her people. They hated us when we were weak, Catherine continued. What will they do when they realize we are strong? How long before they decide that humans are a threat that needs to be eliminated? The debate went on for days. Some humans wanted to help, because it was the right thing to do. Others wanted revenge for 25 years of insults and rejection. Most just wanted to be left alone on their peaceful worlds. President Rachel Stone listened to all the arguments before making her decision. She thought about the human children growing up on New Terra and Haven's Rest. She thought about the alien children dying in refugee camps. She thought about what it meant to be human. We are not helping them because they deserve it, she finally said. We are helping them because this is who we choose to be, but we do it on our terms. The conditions were simple but firm. Human aid would be temporary with clear end dates. No human technology would be shared without fair trade agreements. Most importantly, humanity would maintain its independence and the right to withdraw if their contributions were taken for granted again. The first human relief ships appeared over burning alien worlds exactly 26 years after the Galactic Council had told humanity to go away and die. They carried food, medicine, and hope to people who had forgotten what hope looked like. But they also carried a message that echoed across the galaxy. We are here not because you deserve our help, but because this is who we choose to be. Remember that the next time someone offers you their friendship, the silence had finally been broken, but the galaxy would never be the same again. The message came on every frequency at once. Every radio, every communication array, every emergency beacon in the galaxy carried the same desperate plea. President Rachel Stone listened to it from her office on New Terra, and for the first time in 26 years, she heard real fear in alien voices. To any human who can hear this message, the transmission began. This is the Emergency Council of Galactic Species. Our civilization is dying. We have lost 60% of our populated worlds. Billions are dead. Billions more will die without immediate help. We know we have no right to ask, but we are begging you, please help us. The message was signed by every surviving species leader, including Chancellor Vex, the same Vex who had called humans primitive, the same Vex who had banished them from galactic civilization. Now he was on his knees, asking for mercy. Rachel turned to her advisors. The emergency session had been called within an hour of receiving the transmission. Representatives from all 43 human colonies were present, either in person or through hologram. The decision they made today would change the future of the galaxy. The military assessment is complete, reported Admiral Timothy Hughes. His flagship Discovery was hidden just outside the Sol system, along with 700 other human warships. We can end the major conflicts within 3 months. Our medical facilities can handle the refugee crisis. Our agricultural ships can solve the food shortages. The technology gap was enormous. During their years in exile, humans had not just survived, they had thrived. Their ships used quantum drives that made light-speed travel look slow. Their weapons could disable entire fleets without killing a single person. Their medical technology could cure diseases that aliens considered fatal. What about the costs? Asked Dr. Catherine. Lee Catherine still bore scars from the alien raids that had driven her from her research station decades ago. How many of our people will we risk to save the people who wanted us dead? It was a fair question. The human colonies were peaceful and prosperous. Their children had never known war or hunger. Why should they risk that safety for aliens who had shown them nothing but contempt? Admiral Hughes answered carefully. Our casualty projections are minimal. Our ships are too advanced for current alien weapons to damage. The real risk is political. What happens after we help them? Dr. Michael Foster, representing the outer colonies, stood up. That is exactly my concern. We help them now. They rebuild their strength, and then they decide we are too dangerous to leave alone. How long before they unite against us? The debate continued for hours. Some humans wanted to ignore the plea entirely. They argued that the aliens had made their choice 26 years ago and should live with the consequences. Others felt that humanity had a moral duty to help, regardless of past wrongs. Captain Lisa Carter, now in her 60s, but still sharp, spoke for the moderate position. We are not the same species that begged for help all those years ago. We are stronger now. We can afford to be generous. But we must be smart about it. Lisa had been there when the Galactic Council rejected humanity. She remembered the humiliation and anger, but she also remembered what her grandfather had taught her about being human. That strength without compassion was just another form of weakness. I propose we help them, Lisa continued, but on our terms. Time-limited assistance, fair trade agreements, and most importantly, respect for human independence. Never again will we allow ourselves to become dependent on alien approval. On the hidden world of Haven's Rest, Dr. Maria Santos was monitoring alien communications with her research team. The intercepted messages painted a picture of complete desperation. Military commanders were running out of ammunition. Medical facilities were overwhelmed with casualties. Food distribution networks had collapsed entirely. The Corvani are eating tree bark, reported her assistant, Dr. Paul Anderson. Their last agricultural world was destroyed 3 weeks ago. They have maybe a month before mass starvation sets in. Maria felt a familiar pain in her chest. Before the Exodus, she had worked with Corvani engineers on fusion reactor designs. They had been arrogant and condescending, always treating her like a primitive who had gotten lucky. But they had also been people with families and dreams. What about the Valkyrie? She asked. Their empire is fragmenting. The outer worlds are declaring independence rather than send more resources to fight wars they cannot win. Their homeworld is under siege by a coalition of species they used to dominate. The irony was not lost on Maria. The Valkyrie had considered themselves the master race of the galaxy. They had treated other species like servants and humans like insects. Now, they were facing extinction, and their former servants were the ones trying to destroy them. President Rachel Stone called for the final vote as the galactic distress signal continued to broadcast. The representatives had debated for 2 days. They had considered every angle, every risk, every possible outcome, all those in favor of Operation Helping Hand. 31 colonies voted yes. 12 voted no. Humanity would intervene, but it would not be easy or simple. The conditions are non-negotiable, Rachel announced. Human assistance will be provided for exactly 5 years. All aid comes with fair trade agreements. We are not giving charity. Any species that attacks human personnel or colonies during this period will be immediately cut off from all assistance. And most importantly, when the 5 years are over, humanity reserves the right to withdraw completely if our contributions are not respected. The first human ships decloaked over the Valkyrie homeworld, just as the siege was reaching its climax. Admiral Hughes watched from the Bridge of Discovery as his fleet moved into position. The aliens had been fighting for so long that they had forgotten how to do anything else. This is Admiral Hughes of the Human Defense Force. He broadcast on all frequencies. By order of the human colonial government, this star system is now under temporary protection. All hostile forces will stand down immediately or face the consequences. Alien fleets stopped shooting at each other and stared at the human ships in shock. The humans had been gone for 26 years. Where had these massive advanced warships come from? Admiral reported Captain Jennifer Clark, the Thaxian fleet, is moving to intercept us. They do not seem to believe we are serious. Hughes nodded calmly. Show them the demonstration we prepared. A single human ship, no larger than a Thaxian cruiser, fired one shot at an asteroid floating nearby. The asteroid simply vanished. Not destroyed, but completely disintegrated at the molecular level. The Thaxian fleet stopped moving. Now do we have your attention? Hughes asked. On the refugee world of Kepler 438c, Dr. Helen Brooks was setting up the first human medical station. The conditions were worse than anything she had seen in her 50 years as a doctor. Children were dying from diseases that could be cured with simple antibiotics. Adults were starving while food shipments sat in warehouses because no one could organize distribution. Doctor called Nurse Betty Wilson. We have incoming casualties from the orbital bombardment, 60 wounded, mostly civilians. Helen rolled up her sleeves. This was why humanity had chosen to help, not because the aliens deserved it, but because someone had to care about the innocent people caught in the middle of these pointless wars. Set up triage in the main tent, she ordered, and call for more medical supplies. We are going to be here for a while. As human relief ships appeared across the galaxy, carrying food and medicine and hope, they also carried a message. It was BROADCAST in every language, on every frequency, so that no one could claim they had not heard it. We are here not because you deserve our help, but because this is who we choose to be. We are human. We do not abandon people in need, even when those people have abandoned us. But remember this moment. Remember who came to help you when your world was ending. And remember that the next time someone offers you their friendship, the galaxy had learned what it meant to live without humans. It would learn what it meant to live with them again. But this time, the humans would not be asking for permission to exist. They would be setting the terms.